out walking with Logan again, and thought I'd just have a chat while I'm doing it, do my normal thing. And this is my early morning Sunday tired face. I wanted to talk about the fact that we're all different, so we're all on a kind of sliding scale, and the fact that our training and our approach to everything should be principle based rather than too tied into the specifics. So I've got lots of clients that are all different shapes and sizes, and as a result they find different exercises easier or harder, and a deadlift is a good example of that. And recently I had a couple of different, several different clients that were all deadlifting that were either shorter and stockier, and that meant that they were able to deadlift a lot easier. Their technique is just far simpler. Before they start, if they're shorter and the limbs are shorter, they're going to find that the bar actually starts midway up the shin, or higher even. Whereas someone who's a lot taller, they're going to find that it's virtually down on the floor, closer to their ankle, and that all makes it a lot harder for them to make that lift happen. So as an extreme example, my wife is very tall, and she has long legs but a short torso, and she finds that the deadlift pattern is not a natural one for her at all. She really struggles with that, and least favourite part of the workout, I'd say. But shorter clients just really find that pattern easy. They work that pattern and they can get a lot of load on the bar quite quickly, and it's a productive pattern for them. So we're all individual, but two of my shorter clients were saying that when I commented on how good their deadlifts were, and they came back with the comment that, yeah, not a normal sized person. And that kind of made me think that there really isn't such a thing as a normal person. We're all, regardless of build, attitude, everything, we're all on a sliding scale of normality. And it's, there's people at extreme ends, and we say that they've got conditions or they're not normal, but really nobody's typically normal. Everybody's different, and you'll find that definitely in the gym too. So it's a case of you'll find some things easier than others. I don't know if you can see this. Just going to let Logan dig in the background there while I'm talking to you. So you're going to find some things easier than others, and just kind of embrace that. Your build, your attitude, whatever, is going to be predisposed for certain things, and then not so effective for other things. And you just got to get on with that. But don't think of yourself as normal or not normal. Everybody is vastly different and all that kind of stuff. Okay, it looks like I might be here for a while he's digging this hole. And this whole point also led me to the importance of kind of individualizing what you're doing. So if you take the fact that nobody's normal, everybody's different, everything in your training needs to be adapted to suit what your capabilities are, your uniqueness, if you like. And the way to do that, and the way I do everything actually, is not through specifics in terms of technique, but in terms of principles. So everybody should be dog driving me nuts this morning. So everybody should be aiming to achieve the same principles. They all be common regardless of what your build is, what your individual characteristics are. Those principles remain the same between everybody, but your application of those principles will be unique to you, based on how individual you are. So try not to get too caught up in the specifics of everything and exactly how things are done, and obey the principles and do that as best you can. And of course, make sure you're not just taking shortcuts and being lazy, saying, oh, I can't do that because I'm a certain way. You do your best to adhere to it, but there will be limitations, and you will find certain things easier than others, but the principles will 100% remain the same, and then your application of those will be yours and yours alone. And this concept of principles and then applications of those principles, the methods or the specific techniques, that's important for coaches to understand too. So just do understand that everybody's individual and that everybody's not going to look the same, but not that you should give them too much slack on how things are looking. The principles should be 100% correct. So understand the difference between those principles and the specific application of it for each person. So things will look different for different body types, and you know, that's fine, but just make sure that the underlying core principles are still definitely applied. So for example, with the deadlift that I was talking about earlier, we want to make sure, oh, Logan's ready to move on. Let's go. We're done with the hole. Come on, Logan. Good boy. With the deadlift, the common principle there is a hip hinge. So we're making sure the hip hinge is the correct shape, that the back, the spine is structured in the correct way, that there's no rounding of the lumbar spine, the thoracic spine's extended as well, all that kind of good stuff, that the knees are driven out, we're not getting any valgus collapse at the knees, that the shoulders are down, you know, you're not shrugging up as you're lifting. All of that stuff needs to be happening. And if those principles aren't being applied, then it's not being done correctly. But likewise, you know, the specific position that it's picked up from the floor, you might be having to space it up for somebody because they can't get down to the floor while sticking to those principles with the correct shape back. So you'd space the bar up off the floor. Or you may find that someone, for example, I've got another client whose back's been sore. Deadlifting from the floor is a no-go for them. Their spine is actually, it's just a muscular strain from being sat in a car for a long time and then walking for a long time, and it's just a postural thing. But we can still get the principle of a hip hinge effectively trained by doing like a hip bridge, where we're loading the bar across the hips while you're laying down with your shoulders on a bench, that kind of thing, where you're bridging up. So we can still get the principle of a hip hinge worked into the program, but by modifying it for that individual. And that's the kind of example I just wanted to talk about. But the same thing, a few flies around today, it's the same thing with Thai boxing technique as well. So, you know, not everyone should look the same when they're performing their Thai boxing kicks, punches, strikes, all this kind of stuff. And if you look at the top fighters, you'll see that they don't all move the same. So coaches trying to make all their fighters move as they do is wrong. You know, we want to make sure that you're picking what works for each individual. Certain fighters are going to work in certain ways better than others, but regardless of how they perform the techniques, so those core principles should be there. So just make sure they're there. So it's important for you as an athlete to understand the difference between principles and individualization and the methods that you apply, but also for coaches too, it's a big one.